Daniel squinted at the sky, wondering how the hell it was possible for the air to feel this heavy. It wasn't even noon, and already, stepping outside felt like getting smacked in the face with a wet towel. Sweat trickled down his neck, soaking into the collar of his shirt. He should have taken the dog out earlier, but time had slipped by in the usual blur of nothing. His phone buzzed. "You better not be late, Danny. Don't pull your usual shit." The text was from his sister. He knew what she meant by usual shit. It was hot, sure, but his excuses were wearing thin, especially today. He glanced down at the dog, a massive German Shepherd mix, who was staring at him with a look that said, "Seriously? You're gonna make me go out there?" "Yeah, all right, Daniel muttered, feeling the heat radiating off the sidewalk even before they stepped outside. He'd skipped the funeral prep too long, telling himself there'd be plenty of time. Now, planes were grounded because of the heat, and time was running out. Typical. Shit, he thought. I'm really not going to make it. The heat hit like a punch as soon as the door swung open, the thick, stifling air wrapping around him. Even the dog hesitated, sniffing the air like it was deciding whether it was worth the effort. Daniel wiped the back of his neck with a worn-out t-shirt he'd grabbed from the laundry pile earlier. His whole body was a mess of sweat and regret. He walked in slow, lazy steps toward the curb, feeling the weight of the day ahead pushing down harder than the sun. He could feel his phone burning a hole in his pocket, could almost hear his sister's nagging in his head. "Don't even think about skipping. Mom deserves better." He had no plans of skipping, but the universe seemed to have other ideas. The funeral was 2 states away, and without planes running, it was looking less and less likely he was going to make it on time, or at all. The dog did his business quickly, glancing back at him like, "Can we go inside now?" Daniel sighed and let him back in, collapsing onto the couch while the dog wedged himself underneath it. Another text lit up his phone. "You on your way?" He stared at the screen. Technically, the answer was no, but he couldn't say that. Not yet. Not when things were still possible in theory. "Yeah, I'm figuring it out," he typed back. A lie, but one with enough flexibility to buy him some time. The last thing he needed was his sister chewing him out from hundreds of miles away when he couldn't do anything about it. He lay back on the couch, letting the silence and the heat fill the space around him. The funeral. For his mom. The words hadn't fully settled in yet. Not really. There was something surreal about it all. Like it wasn't happening to him. Like if he waited long enough, it'd just be another thing he had missed and didn't have to deal with. The next thing he knew, his phone was ringing, loud enough to wake the dead. Daniel rubbed his face and glanced at the screen. His sister again. He swiped to answer, half expecting the usual barrage of questions. "You better not be screwing around, Daniel. Where the hell are you?" Her voice was sharp, cutting through his grogginess like a knife. He paused, glancing at the time. It was past noon now. Shit. "I'm trying, okay? There's no flights out. Everything's grounded." No shit, everything's grounded. It's like the hottest day in history. Her voice softened, but not much. "You should have planned better. It's not like this snuck up on you." "Yeah, well, life happens," Daniel muttered. He wasn't in the mood for a lecture. "What do you want me to do? Drive 2 states in this heat? I'd be a puddle halfway there." "I don't care how you get here, but you'd better show up. Mom's dead, Danny. You can't just skip out on this like it's some family dinner." That stung. It wasn't like he hadn't thought about the funeral. He just hadn't done anything about it. And now the clock was ticking down faster than he could fix things. "Look," he said, sitting up and wiping the sweat from his face. "I'll figure something out, all right? I'm not gonna bail. I just need time." His sister didn't say anything for a moment. He could hear the sound of her breathing on the other end, and then a muffled shout in the background. Probably his nephew causing havoc again. "You've got until 5. After that..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. He already knew. The call ended, leaving the room quiet again, except for the faint hum of the broken AC trying to keep up with the impossible heat. Daniel stared at the ceiling, the fan lazily spinning overhead. His mom used to call days like this hairdryer days, the kind of heat that felt like someone was blasting you in the face with a hot, smelly dryer. That was her thing, hair dryers. She spent half her life with one in hand, either working or talking about working. Always busy, always moving. Better tomorrow, she'd say whenever things went sideways. Even when he'd screwed up big time, she'd come sit on the edge of his bed and smooth his hair back with a sigh. It's okay, Danny. Better tomorrow. Now there was no tomorrow with her. He was going to miss the one final chance to say goodbye, wasn't he? By 3 o'clock, Daniel had burned through every option. Flights weren't happening. Driving wasn't an option. He considered hitching a ride, but who the hell was picking anyone up in this heat? He was stuck, trapped in his sweltering apartment with no real way out. The thought of calling a friend, or anyone really, passed through his mind, but he pushed it away. It felt too much like admitting defeat. He got up and grabbed his keys, deciding to walk to the liquor store instead. If he wasn't going to make it to the funeral, he might as well do something. Drown his guilt in a bottle, maybe. The walk to the store was unbearable, the sun beating down so hard it felt personal. By the time he got there, he was drenched in sweat, already regretting the decision. Back in his apartment, he unscrewed the bottle and took a long, hard swig. It burned going down, but that was kind of the point. He sat down on the floor, leaning against the couch, staring out the window at the haze of heat. His phone buzzed again, but this time he didn't check it. Whatever his sister had to say, he didn't want to hear it. Not now. Not with his mom's voice echoing in the back of his mind, whispering, "Better tomorrow. Always tomorrow." He wasn't sure how long he sat there, but the sun was beginning to set when something clicked in his mind. Something his sister had said earlier about not missing the chance to say goodbye. The funeral was in a few hours. They'd say their goodbyes, cry, and move on, without him. But he had his own way of saying goodbye. He stood up, wobbling slightly, and made his way to the cabinet where his mom's old hairdryer sat. She'd left it behind when she moved to Florida. He never understood why she kept it, but now it seemed fitting. He plugged it in and flicked it on, the warm, stale air blowing across his face like a memory. Goodbye, Mom, he thought, letting the air fill the room. It's okay. Better tomorrow.